I feel pretty intimidated talking to you.
Intimidated?
Yes, because you've met so many amazing startups and all these young entrepreneurs, and you've done a lot. And it's like I kind of feel like I need to step up in this conversation. So I'm like so I'm trying my best. If I'm being like a little too nervous, it's like I apologize in advance, but yeah.
I'm here to learn from you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 5 People on the Go, the show that's all about tools and approaches for success from the most brilliant people. My name is Meital Zavi. I'm your host, and today we have Charlie Federman. That's how you pronounce your name? Okay. And he's probably one of the most brilliant people I've met so far in my life, if not only in New York. And, well, the other way around, but you get what I meant. And you've done so much, and you're a partner in this Silver Tech, which is a venture capital for tech companies. And you pretty much give them, more than just funding, you give them a home, which I think it's just an amazing thing to share. So, yeah, now that I got this out of the way, I would love to hear from you. First of all, what made you want to do this? Like, what's the story here?
The story here is that I was involved in 2 young startups, which became very successful. And it was not a straight line. The companies pivoted, and I was inspired by the CEOs. They gave their hearts, their souls, their health, and they really looked after their shareholders and their customers. And whenever there was a fork in the road, they always chose the ethical path as opposed to the expedient path. And I said, working with people like this can be a really amazing experience for me. And maybe we can make a difference and help really good people do really good things.
That's beautiful. So what is the concept here? Because yesterday we talked a little bit and you explained to me, like you said, that you're giving the people here a sense of belonging. So what do? Someone comes to you and say like, yeah, I want to create a startup. And then what?
Well, they either say, I want to create a startup, or they have created a startup. And we know something which goes on behind the PowerPoint, where there's people. And the PowerPoint can be a very limiting document, as limiting as a spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. Because life doesn't go like a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet. And what we tell the CEOs, the founders, is something which we really believe, that their well-being is more important to us than the company. And we say that, we mean it, but we also say it for some selfish reasons. Because I know that a company where the CEO is looking forward, doesn't have to look over their shoulder, and has a sense of well-being, is probably going to be a more successful CEO than somebody who is constantly looking around who's coming after them. Mm-hmm. So that was one. And the second thing is, your first idea might not be the right one.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we want to enable the CEOs, change your business to something better. It's okay. You're not going to disappoint us. As a matter of fact, after you do the pivot, tell us. We don't want to be friction for it. Don't feel like you're locked into the guardrails with us.
That's such a new perspective, honestly, because I got to talk to a lot of, venture capitals. And it's always like, yeah, we calculate how many equity, if there's going to be a demand in the market and things like that. And you go in the exact opposite direction. You said this method works better.
Well, I'm not sure that our method works better for everybody.
Okay.
I think if you take a look at the last couple of decades, it's hard to argue that the venture capital industry was not successful. It's hard to argue that entrepreneurs didn't do amazing things. But I think that when markets get larger, they fragment. And when they fragment, you have more alternatives. So what we're doing speaks to some people, but it won't necessarily speak to others. From an economic perspective, what I'd like to think is that we're more focused on making the pie bigger than what our share is at any given point in time.
Can you explain that sentence a little bit
Yeah.
more?
We would like a company to be a big company. And if it means that you do a pivot and a lot of the money that's already been invested gets washed, so be it. We would rather the entrepreneur focus their time and attention on something big rather than something which isn't necessarily working for them. And we won't force anybody to do this or that. I'm not a big believer in us having governance. We try not to sit on boards. We sit on a few, but that is not something which we're all about. And the reason for that is I think governance gets in the way of a relationship. We're having a conversation.
Yes.
And nobody's voting on each other. You have the ultimate vote because you've got editing rights.
Yeah, that's true.
But this is a conversation amongst equals right now. You're not worried about what you're saying. I'm not worried about what I'm saying. We're being open and honest and having a conversation. If I was voting on you, if this conversation was around sponsorship for your activities, or if I was looking to sell you something, there'd be agendas.
True.
And there'd also be a fear of somebody doing damage to somebody. That's not part of our conversation because we don't vote. We don't want to be put in that position. We want to give our open and honest recommendations and assessments without an agenda.
So you don't have a vote, but you do have equity. So,
Yeah.
like, if they make it, you get it. If they not,
Yeah. We get equity.
that's a risk.
Sure. Yeah, it's a risk. But let me ask you, what does your fulfillment come from?
Well, for me, it's inspiration.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
We have surrounded ourselves very luckily with people who inspire us every day. And we're foolhardy, but we think that these people who inspire us have the capability of building companies that make a difference. Well, isn't that cool to be able to be in that position?
I love it. But people always say that, like, I don't have a business mindset. So it's when I hear it from someone that everything he does is business, well, first of all, I like to hear it, but I also wonder if it actually works. Like, all you want is to make a difference, but they always say you need to pay rent as well. So,
see, I think I sort of admire your generation because I think your generation is much more purpose-driven for the greater good than my generation was, or the generation that came after me. So I like it that your generation is doing the big quit. They're moving from one company to the other. I think a company needs to have the right environment and give people the right opportunity to grow in the way that fulfills them. And if they don't get it, they should quit. There's no problem with that. And maybe companies need to give back a little bit more. And companies should have a sense of purpose. I think it's great for companies to have a sense of purpose. You're going to go through life and earn money without purpose? I'd rather have purpose and less money.
I completely agree. Right before this conversation we have right now, I told you that one of the things I wanted to do as a teenager is become a doctor.
Yeah.
But one of the questions that I couldn't answer is why I'm doing this. And I think it's a very important question to answer. And what I do today, I have a strong why. I wake up every morning with like full of energy.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good. But it's always like this decision between making money and doing what you love. It seems to not connect that well. So how do you manage to connect it so good here?
Yeah.
I'm really curious about it.
I'll tell you, when you were just speaking about it, I had a vision in my head, and I was thinking, if I was a patient, would I want to have an unhappy doctor treating me?
Oh my God, no. Never.
Right. So you were on a path. You obviously have got the smarts and the capability, so you could have become a physician.
Mm-hmm.
And after all that investment, it's very difficult to then quit.
Sure.
In which case, you could have been a very unhappy physician. And an unhappy physician has the capability of not serving the greater good the way that you want to serve the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the path you're on is the better path. For you, it appears to be.
I think so too. I'm just wondering, where is the border? Because if it was up to me, I would do almost everything I do right now for free. I love it. I enjoy every minute of it. I get to travel the world, meet interesting people, and give inspiration to other people, which I feel is like something to live for. But you need to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah, like I had a conversation with a 20-year-old person still in college, and I said, the senior in college, I said, well, where are you all headed? Where do you think? And he said, I want to be a philanthropist.
Okay.
I said, okay, do you have any resources to be a philanthropist over? And he says, no, but I like the idea of giving away money to people who need help.
Okay.
And that's sort of a disconnect.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, those disconnects do exist, and you are bounded by reality. But sometimes, like Steve Jobs used to say, maybe you could tilt the reality a little bit in your direction.
So now I'm curious. Let's say that someone comes to you, like this guy says, I want to be a philanthropist.
Right.
And you say, okay, I'm willing to support you. What is the business plan there? Because basically all he wants to do is help people. So what do you do with him?
There's probably not a business plan there. We probably won't be in business together in that situation.
Makes
so
sense.
Today we have 40 or so companies coming to us every month.
Mm-hmm.
80% are referred by our CEOs. And the CEOs are telling their friends, if they come to us, we'll take good care of them, which, by the way, creates an obligation for us.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very different if somebody sends you a PowerPoint via email and somebody who you know, trust, and love says, here's my friend, can you take care of them?
Absolutely.
So we treat what we do with a great deal of obligation, as well as looking for inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody who comes in and says, I want to give away money, that doesn't necessarily inspire us.
Mm-hmm. So let's say that it's a company that does inspire you, want to do good.
The person
inspires us.
That
inspires you. And he wants to do good in the world, but his business plan is like, what do you do?
If the person inspires us, that's where we start. And by the way, you've used the pronoun he a number of times. We've now worked with 36 companies with 15 female founders.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sort of blind on that respect, especially of the companies we've worked with. 31 come from Israel, and those numbers are a little bit different from what you see in Israel. And the only reason why those numbers are so high is because our lady founders tell their lady friends that this is a really good place to be, and they feel really comfortable being here.
That's beautiful. So what do you do? Like, someone comes to you, because I know that's something that I personally have struggled with. I am really good at what I do, but my business mindset might not be the best. I don't know how to monetize things. So do you actually give them like this monetization consulting? Like, you help them build the business plan?
We do three things. Mm-hmm. We have two operations. We have a hub here with this nice real estate from the Silverstein family, who are our partners, and we also have a venture fund, which we actually invest in the companies. We prosecute both businesses different from what's standard. Mm-hmm. In the hub, people come and join us for a minimum 1 year period. And we made it 1 year instead of the 10-week things, because I figured that time is a constant, and the way you use it is your choice.
Sure.
You can use it broadly, in which case you have a lot of contacts. Or you can flip it, and you could use your time narrowly, in which case you build relationships. So what did we choose to do?
Relationships.
And if you want to build relationships, we make it a 1-year period that they're with us. 1. 2, we severely constrain the number of companies that we work with. So we see 40 companies a month. So let's pick a round number, 500 new companies a year will approach us. And every year we'll take anywhere between 4 and 8 into our hub, which is a fairly small number.
Yeah.
1. The second thing we did is we made the decision that the person is more important than the business. So we're generalists.
You're not what?
We're generalists.
Okay.
We're not focused on any one area. We're not fintech or prop tech or whatever the prefixes to tech.
Okay.
We are people tech. Right?
That's nice.
So our founders know whatever business they're in, that market, much better than us. Much better than we'll ever aspire to. But we help them in 3 ways. First way we help them is everybody will need to raise some money for their company. They want to hire employees, and build the technology, et cetera. We help them get that money. And we don't invest day one. This year, our companies will raise about $375 million. So one can argue we're getting good at that. The second way we help them is they come on in, they say, do you know ... Do you know a helper? Do you know a contact? Do you know customers? And with the relationship we have with the Silversteins and all the other companies here, we know a lot of ... We even know ... for you. But the third thing is what's most important to Larry and myself and Tal. And the third thing is when the CEO grabs some nuts and chocolate or candy and sits at this little round table in front of us and says, my plan has collided with reality. Which happens about twice a month, by the way.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. And there's an opportunity they weren't thinking about. There's a problem, or people aren't getting along. And around that, we talk. And we help solve problems and seize opportunities. We bring our experience to the table, and there's no obligation for them to listen to us. We're sitting and we're talking like peers. And the reason we appreciate that third thing so much, because on those conversations is where you build a relationship.
It's true.
And that's our currency, relationships.
That's beautiful and so inspiring. Well, I want to get practical because that's something that I really, I always try to give my viewers things that when they see it, they're like, okay, now I know how we can do things differently. So let's talk a little bit about what you see in the people that come here and what are the main mistakes that you see them do, like when meeting you. So you said that, first of all, the most important thing for you is like they inspire you.
Yeah.
So what does it mean? If you can try maybe break it down for people that are listening and want to be that person, how does it look like?
Well, I'm not really interested in anyone's PowerPoint in a first visit. I want to talk with the person as a person and try to understand what's going on behind the PowerPoint. What's the motivations? What's the sacrifices that they're experiencing to do what they do? You build these companies at great sacrifice and sometimes at great personal peril as well. And what inspired them, is it enduring, or is it just a one-time thing? And how do they plan on doing it? What makes it so special? That's what I try to understand in a first meeting with somebody. And beyond that, if they like us and we like them, what I tell them is, why don't you start coming here a bit? I'll put your name into security. and we'll start spending some time together. So when the world went fast on venture and accelerators and whatever else, we went slow, which might have been a bug. For us, it's an attribute, not a bug. And we decided that there's no applications to join Silvertech or anything. There's no set time periods to join us either. How long does it take? What we do is we ask them to come visit us and work out of our offices for a period of time and see if we're right for them. And if they're right for us, and they'll meet the other CEOs and the other companies when they're here as well. And how are they getting along? Is this the right environment? Is this the right vibe? And I think when you walk in the door, there's like an air here, which is some people sitting on the couch or whatever. And I think there's a specialness to it.
There's, as a person, because the people that listen to this obviously aren't here, but as a person who came in here, I can definitely say there is this, you can feel the intelligence in the air. So I told you when we started that I feel a little threatened doing this call. Or this recording.
Threatened or intimidated. There's a difference.
Well, I'm not sure what is the difference.
Threatened is there's like an aggressiveness.
Oh, no, just intimidated, man. Sorry. So yeah, I felt a little intimidated because I felt like I need to step up. I got in here and you feel that the level of the people that are around here, it's pretty high. And they see things more than maybe the average person. So I felt more vulnerable. It's like I needed to be more in front. And I feel like that's kind of an environment that can be either improving for a lot of people or, like I'm saying, intimidating, that like, no, they can't handle it. So I think it's very important what you say, to see that the vibe is working for you. Even if you offer all these things, it's important to see that. So I just wanted to point it out for the people that aren't here with us right now.
Well, our objective isn't to be intimidating. Our objective is to be approachable on it, usually around food and stuff like that.
A lot of chocolate everywhere.
Yeah, well, chocolate, and we have bread contests and things like that. With Hanukkah coming up, and that's always a special time. We got one guy who's the babka guy.
Nice.
But with that said, it's a serious place. People are making a lot of sacrifices to build their companies. And they're not here to have recreation. They do have recreation. They do build wonderful relationships with each other. But with the sacrifice they're making, they really want to be successful. And maybe that's what you're feeling, that you want to potentially
step up your game,
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't think so too.
Yeah, if it was a threatening environment, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, okay.
If intimidating, where you feel you have to do better, that's okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
It feels good.
Especially if you take the next step, which is the people sitting here can help me do better. I can learn from them. And people have got their doors open, and you can sit and you can talk with them on any topic. And that's really good.
That is really good. It's really not for granted. So let's go back to the person that comes here for the first time.
Sure.
So you said a lot of interesting things. And can you give an example for someone? Well, let's do two someones if you can. Someone that came here and was like the perfect match. So what he did correctly. And the second one that was like completely way off and what he did wrong.
Yeah.
Let's start with a good one.
With the good one, we just, before this began, there was a young lady here, Michal, who started a company almost 3 years ago now, 3.5 years ago, perhaps. And she came on in with an idea, and she presented all this great momentum, et cetera. And it turned out to be the absolute wrong thing to do. And it became pretty apparent after 3 or 4 months that it was the absolute wrong thing to do. And then she pivoted the company. And then she pivoted it again during in the middle of COVID, out of her apartment. And she pivoted it to a really wonderful thing. And what she did is she took the best attributes of doing good and turned it into a business to harness all the Fortune 500s in New York. And she's now countrywide across the US, and she's now also in Europe as well. And she has 80 Fortune 500s paying her hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to bring corporations and community together, which is a really cool thing. So she's an inspirational person she just wanted to do good. She'll try this model, and the third one worked. She's raised over $15 million with us now. She's about to close another round, even in all this nasty times. So it's really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
So what did she do correctly in the first meeting?
In the first meeting?
Yeah.
She was herself. She was just talking about what drives her and what's important to her, and shared with me a little bit about her background and why she in New York. She grew up in Israel and moved here and started a company out of her apartment, and talked about she's brought a business partner on board, and the business partner came in the middle of the meeting and he talked about his background. And we just felt there was a connection in the air. I said, why don't you sit with us a little bit? And then, by the way, it took us over 2 years before we made our first investment into the company. They were in the hub, but our fund did not yet invest. See, our fund, we have a policy of not leading rounds. The person who leads a round prices a round.
Okay.
So if an entrepreneur says, my company is worth $20 million, but I'm thinking, I think the company's worth $19 million, we then start having these negotiations and stuff over our differences. And I would rather not be in that position. I don't want to have a position where the CEO is on one side of the table and we're on the other. Instead, what we do is we turn to the companies and we say, we're going to help you do a round. We're going to help you raise your money. We're not going to lead the pricing on it. If you think you're worth $20 million, let's go on out and try to set the valuation at $20 million. The market's going to tell us, is it 20, 25, or is it 19 or less? You're going to get in some offers. And in the course of that, I'm going to give you 3 choices. 1, you can invite us to participate up front. You have your lead, they set the price and terms, and we can invest alongside of them. No special terms, no special anything. Or your second choice is you can say, Charlie, I'm going to keep it in mind. I'm going to get the lead, and I want to have a discussion with the lead about your participation on it. Because the lead, the person who leads the round, puts in the most money and prices it, etc. That person is going to be a very important person for me, and I would like to make it a cooperative decision. I think that's a best practice, by the way, to do it that way. Or the third thing you can do is you can say, Charlie, even though I love you very much, I prefer you not to invest. That takes the most courage, and I fully support it. And the reason I fully support it is I think a CEO, founder, needs to always do the right thing for their company that comes from their heart. If they feel the right thing is that we don't invest, we should not invest. And I applaud the CEO for taking that attitude, because I want our relationship to be an example of the way we want the CEOs to behave. Do the right thing for your company.
Interesting. When people are just starting out, they usually don't understand that much how this process works. So that's why I'm taking a step back here. And I'm going back to that first meeting. because I feel like that's something most people can really relate to. We give the perfect example. She was just herself. She was herself, and then you also said that she pivoted a lot, which means that she was flexible. That I feel like that's a really good quality.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the bad example. The one that came here and was like way off, and you were looking at him and is like, okay, this guy, no.
Yeah, it didn't happen in the first meeting. It happened after about 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
This was a founder that joined us and had an edge, a business edge, really go for it, which is all fine. And then we helped them raise $1 million at a valuation which was more than double their expectations. So they, as an example, they thought that they were worth $10 million, and we raised money for them at a $20 million valuation, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And then they sat down with me and they said, gee, thanks a lot, but we were thinking that when we joined Silvertech, we gave you some equity for your work, and your equity is now worth twice as much as we thought it was going to be worth. And I said, well,
That's a good thing.
I said, that's sort of math because the percentage is constant and the company is worth double what you thought it was going to be worth. And that's a good thing for everybody, isn't it? They say, yeah, it is a good thing, but still we think that the value is too much. So what we'd like you to do is give us half your equity back.
Just give us, not buy it from you. Just
give us half your equity back. And what I told them is, today is your lucky day. They said, why? I said, because I'm going to give it all back to you. I'm going to give you back 100%. We're done.
Wow. That's such a brave decision.
Why is it a brave decision?
Because I don't know a lot of people who would say something like that. It's like it's just, you know what you want, you believe in your values, and like the moment someone crosses the line, you're like, you're done. And it's really
because we want the
impressive,
people
honestly.
to do the right thing.
I agree.
So if somebody is not doing the right thing, and it's not a hearsay sort of thing, they're sitting across from me like this distance.
Yeah.
And they're taking a perspective which I consider somewhat outrageous. What should I do? Should I say no and continue working with them? Or should I say, oh yeah, great idea, and continue working with them? This is somebody who I didn't want to be in business with, because what are they going to do tomorrow?
You're right.
So that's an example of a mistake. And I thought that if we did the action that we did, it would send a message that we also want to do the right thing. A lot of people preach doing the right thing, and which applies to others.
Yeah, that's true. So if we try to break it down for the listeners, what do you think is the exact thing they did wrong? They thought they were selfish. They needed to think about your
Selfish sort
side.
of comes pretty high up on the list, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I felt like sometimes you have an agreement with people and it's working out, and even if it's not working out, you can have a discussion, but there should be boundaries about what the discussion is. I mean, there's certain things that you can discuss and certain things you shouldn't discuss. And you shouldn't have to lecture people or have discussions with people. What's wrong behavior? Come on. You know what we say? Come on, guys.
That's nice. So being selfish is off the table. What other mistakes you've seen?
Here?
Well, from working with these young entrepreneurs who pretty much only start learning the business world.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Sometimes there's some really hard choices, and at the time, you're not sure it's a mistake or you're making a conscious trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you an example. You hire some people.
Mm-hmm.
You need to pay salaries. You have obligations to people. Sometimes people with families quit one job and they work with you. And your money is getting low. And you have an investor who you don't necessarily like and respect, but they're willing to give you money tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't give you money, you're going to have to lay off people with families. And you have a sense of obligation to them, and you also have a sense of obligation to your company. What do you do in that situation? These are some tough choices, and there isn't necessarily right decisions at the moment.
So I want to make sure I understood. You're running out of money.
You're running out of money.
The investor is not ready to pay right now.
No, you have an investor,
You have
a new investor
Yes.
who will give you money, and you don't like the person. You don't share the ethics with the person. You are worried about what this person
wants in return
wants.
for his money.
Yeah, where they're going to lead you.
Okay, interesting. So what do?
You make a decision what's best for the company and what's best for yourself. If this person is truly going to make life miserable,
Mm-hmm.
you should not take the money because you're only going to defer a reckoning.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you think you're going to really build significant value, you take the money. In which case, then there'll be another round and another round, and that person's influence will be diminished with the passage of time.
So did it ever happen to you, like what you're describing right now?
Of course it did. We've had 36 companies in our hub now. We've made 22 investments. Just the law of averages. It's happened more than once. And you sit with the CEO during that process and you talk through, this is what it means to them. And you leave it to the founder, CEO, to make the choice that's best for them. It's not our company. It's their company. They're the ones who are putting their heart and soul in their company. They're the ones that need to make the decision that's right for them, not us.
Can you give an example what someone did in that situation? Like, because that's a hard choice. Deciding to lay off people, like instead of taking money from someone that you don't really believe in his values. It's a very hard choice. So what did you do?
We've had companies do both.
Okay. And you lay off these people and then you might lose your company?
We've had, yeah, it's happened that way. It's happened that way. Mm-hmm. They took the perspective that if this is the only investor they have, that maybe this business is not going to succeed anyway. And they used it as an opportunity to try a pivot, and pivot didn't work so well.
It's interesting what you're saying. So you say that when you get to a moment where, I'm not sure what's the English term for it, but I guess when like you need to lay off people, you're really running out low of money, the best approach might be actually to pivot.
Sure. Yeah. Because maybe the business that you're doing is too hard. You see, Peter Drucker once said that the objective of a company should be to create happy, profitable customers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not creating happy, profitable customers, you probably don't have a good business. So why are you going through such self-exploitation if you're not creating a good business? You should do something different. Do a different type of business. or just do something different.
That is really good. So we need to finish soon. And usually I finish with like this golden tip, I call it, something that's you want to give an advice to people that are listening right now. So that was an amazing advice. So if you want, we can finish here. But if you have something else that you want to share to the viewers or listeners and give them something that will be like, this is...
There's no general right way, but there's a right way for each individual.
That's true.
Right? So do the right thing. That's it.
I love it.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Charlie. This was amazing. I don't remember when was I ever this vulnerable in a call. I basically felt like there is so much I don't know, and I'm listening. I feel like a little kid right now. So,
Well, I'm glad you said vulnerable as opposed to threatened.
You're good. I'm sorry. I didn't know there was such a big difference in the meaning for it. But
It's okay.
yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. This was great. Yes. And thank you guys for listening or watching this episode. I hope you got as much value as I did. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys.